One of you left a comment that really stayed with me. All the technology sounds impressive, but what features do you actually get for the money? And that's a fair question, because when it comes to the Tesla Model 2, we hear a lot about factory, innovation, next generation, batteries, and production breakthroughs, but far less about what actually shows up in your driveway for the price you pay. And here's the part that often gets missed. At a fixed price point, every feature Tesla adds comes with a trade-off somewhere else. That trade-off might be in range, interior materials, mechanical complexity, or even long-term ownership costs. Those compromises don't sound exciting in a press release, but they matter a lot once you've lived with the car for a few years. So today, we're not just listing features, we're asking a more useful question. At the Model 2's target price, what are you really paying for? What do you gain in daily use? What do you quietly stop paying for? And which missing features might actually make this car simpler, cheaper, and more durable over time? Because the Model 2 is not being designed as a cheaper Model 3. It's being engineered as a different kind of product. Optimized around ownership efficiency instead of showroom appeal. When you look at the expected price of the Model 2, the first thing to understand is that you are not buying premium materials. You're not paying for stitched leather dashboards, soft-touch plastics, everywhere, or decorative trim designed to impress in a 5-minute test drive. Tesla is intentionally removing those elements because they add cost, weight, and long-term wear issues without improving the way the car actually drives or functions. What you are paying for instead is structural simplicity. Fewer parts, larger castings, a body and chassis designed to be assembled quickly, consistently, and with less variation. That matters because every part you remove is one less thing that can fail, squeak, rattle, or need replacement over time. In daily ownership, this shows up as a car that feels solid rather than luxurious. Panels may be simpler, surfaces may be harder, but tolerances are tighter, and the structure underneath is more rigid. You're paying for durability, not decoration. Range is another area where expectations often need recalibration. The Model 2 is not trying to win range competitions. Tesla could give it a larger battery, but that would immediately raise the price, weight, and charging costs. Instead, the focus is on usable. It's an efficient range that fits the majority of daily driving patterns. So what you're paying for is not maximum miles, but consistent efficiency. A lighter vehicle, optimized aerodynamics, and power electronics designed to minimize energy loss. That means lower electricity costs per mile, faster real-world charging sessions, and less long-term stress on the battery. What you're no longer paying for is excess capacity you rarely use. A 400-mile battery sounds impressive, but most owners carry around unused battery mass every single day. The Model 2 shifts that money into efficiency instead of storage. The battery itself reflects this philosophy. Instead of prioritizing extreme energy density, Tesla is expected to focus on chemistry that emphasizes longevity, thermal stability, and cycle life. That means slower degradation, fewer performance losses over time, and reduced likelihood of expensive replacements. So you're paying for a battery that is designed to last the life of the vehicle, not one optimized purely for headline numbers. Inside the cabin, the same logic continues. You're not paying for dozens of physical buttons, complex mechanical vents, or layered trim materials. Those components add cost and failure points. Instead, Tesla simplifies the interior architecture, relying on software, fewer moving parts, and standardized modules. In daily use, this means fewer things to break. Climate controls are digital. Seating mechanisms are simpler. There are fewer motors, fewer switches, and fewer hidden components that typically fail as cars age. What you're paying for is functional comfort, not adjustable luxury. The seats are designed for durability and support, rather than intricate articulation. The materials are chosen for wear resistance and ease of cleaning rather than tactile softness. That translates to lower maintenance costs in a cabin that ages more gracefully even if it doesn't feel premium on day one. Another major cost shift is in the drivetrain. The Model 2 is expected to use a simplified motor configuration, optimized for efficiency and reliability rather than peak performance. You're not paying for aggressive acceleration figures or multi-motor complexity. Instead, you're paying for a powertrain that operates within a conservative stress envelope that matters because high-performance components experience more thermal and mechanical stress, which shortens lifespan and raises service costs. The Model 2 trades a few tenths of a second in acceleration for years of additional durability. For most owners, this results in a car that feels responsive, smooth, and predictable. Rather than fast in a way that is rarely used, suspension and chassis tuning follow the same pattern. You're not paying for adaptive dampers, air suspension, or multiple driving modes. Those systems improve ride quality in edge cases, but they add significant complexity and cost. Instead, you're paying for a fixed, well-calibrated setup designed to handle daily driving, poor roads, and long-term wear. Fewer sensors, fewer actuators, fewer failure points. Over time, this means fewer expensive repairs and more consistent ride behavior as the vehicle ages. From a technology perspective, Tesla prioritizes software over hardware. You're not paying for a dashboard full of screens, individual modules for every function, or redundant control systems. You're paying for a centralized computing architecture that handles multiple vehicle systems through software. This reduces wiring complexity, lowers manufacturing cost, and enables updates over time without physical changes. In practical terms, this means the car can improve after you buy it. Features can be added, optimized, or refined without replacing hardware. What you're no longer paying for is static technology that becomes outdated the moment the car leaves the factory. On the safety side, you are still paying for core structural integrity, advanced driver assistance sensors, and passive safety systems. Tesla does not compromise here because safety is both a regulatory and brand priority. However, you are not paying for cosmetic safety features or redundant luxury add-ons that do not meaningfully improve protection. The result is a vehicle that meets or exceeds safety standards while keeping the system architecture as simple and robust as possible. Maintenance is where the Model 2's design philosophy becomes most visible, by reducing part count, eliminating complex mechanisms, and standardizing components. Tesla lowers the frequency and cost of service events. You're paying for fewer brake replacements due to regenerative braking, fewer fluid changes, no transmission servicing, no exhaust system, no oil changes, and fewer interior components that wear out mechanically. What you're no longer paying for is the hidden cost of complexity that exists in many modern vehicles, where advanced features create long-term service liabilities. Ownership costs also extend to energy use. A smaller, more efficient battery, paired with a lighter vehicle, means lower charging expenses over the life of the car. That difference compounds over hundreds of thousands of miles. You're paying for operating efficiency, not just purchase price. Even the exterior design reflects this trade-off logic. The Model 2 is expected to avoid intricate body lines, decorative elements, and complex lighting assemblies. Those features look good, but they raise production cost and repair expense. Simpler panels and modular components mean lower repair bills, easier replacements, and more consistent manufacturing quality. So you're paying for practicality, not visual drama. There is also an important psychological shift in what you're buying. The Model 2 is not positioned as a status product. You're not paying for brand signaling or luxury perception. You're paying for transportation efficiency, technological integration, and cost predictability that changes the ownership relationship. The car becomes a tool, not a trophy. And for many buyers, that is exactly the point. When you step back and look at the full picture, the Model 2's pricing strategy becomes clearer. You are not buying the most advanced version of every feature. You are buying the most optimized version of the ones that matter most to long-term ownership. You're paying for a vehicle designed to be built quickly, driven efficiently, maintained cheaply, kept on the road for many years with minimal intervention. And what you're no longer paying for is excess. excess materials, excess complexity, excess performance, excess features that look good in marketing but add little to daily life. The trade-offs are intentional. They are not cost-cutting in the traditional sense. They are cost-reallocation. Money is being shifted away from superficial elements and into structural, electrical, and software systems that directly affect reliability and operating cost. That's why the Model 2 matters, not because it is the cheapest Tesla, because it represents a different way of thinking about what value in a car actually means. And when people ask, at this price, what am I really paying for? The answer is simple. You are paying for less to go wrong, less to maintain, less to replace, and less to regret. And in long-term ownership, that is often worth far more than any single feature on a spec sheet. There's another layer to this that most buyers never see, but they pay for anyway. It's the way manufacturing decisions ripple forward into ownership experience. The Model 2 is being designed around extreme manufacturing consistency. That sounds like a factory detail, but it directly affects you as the owner. When parts are standardized and assembly steps are reduced, tolerances improve. Fewer variations mean fewer alignment issues, fewer fitment problems, and fewer long-term squeaks, rattles, and electrical gremlins. What you're paying for here is not something you can point to on day one. That's something you notice over 5, 8, or 10 years when the car still feels tight instead of tired. In traditional vehicles, complexity is often mistaken for quality. More buttons, more motors, more adjustments, more trim layers. Each one feels like an upgrade, but each one is also a potential failure point. The Model 2 deliberately moves in the opposite direction, strips the system down to what is functionally necessary, and then reinforces those parts to last. So while the interior may feel simpler, it is also more robust. Hinges are stronger. Mechanisms are fewer. Materials are selected not for luxury appeal, but for fatigue, resistance, temperature stability, and wear tolerance. Gosh. This is why you're paying for engineering time rather than surface polish. Another area where this matters is electronics. Modern cars fail far more often from electronic issues than mechanical ones. Loose connectors, moisture ingress, software conflicts, module failures. Tesla's approach with the Model 2 is to reduce the number of independent electronic modules and move toward centralized control. This means fewer wiring harnesses, fewer connectors, fewer distributed failure points. What you're paying for is a cleaner electrical architecture. Doesn't make headlines, but it dramatically improves long-term reliability and serviceability. And because so much of the vehicle behavior is software-defined, Tesla can refine efficiency, charging, behavior, thermal management, and even driving dynamics over time. You're paying for a platform that evolves instead of depreciates purely through aging. Depreciation itself is another hidden cost that features rarely address. Cars with complex option packages, luxury materials, and niche components often lose value faster because repairs are expensive and buyers fear long-term ownership risk. A simpler, standardized vehicle retains value more predictably because its costs are easier to estimate. The Model 2 is structured to behave more like a commodity platform than a luxury product that stabilizes resale. What you're paying for here is not just a lower purchase price, but lower uncertainty. Then there's the question of repairability. Body shops and service centers charge based on time and parts complexity. The more unique components a vehicle has, the more expensive every accident becomes. Tesla's move toward larger castings and modular assemblies reduces part variety and simplifies replacement procedures. That translates directly into lower insurance repair costs over the life of the car. You're paying for design that anticipates damage and recovery, not just pristine showroom condition. Even something as basic as panel geometry matters. Flat or gently curved panels are cheaper to stamp, easier to align, and less expensive to replace than complex sculpted surfaces. That's not a styling decision. It's an ownership cost decision. From the driver's perspective, these choices show up as predictability. The car behaves consistently. Controls respond the same way every time. There are fewer quirks, fewer edge cases, fewer strange interactions between systems. What you're paying for is behavioral stability. The car doesn't need to be learned. Over time, it becomes transparent. The user experience is intentionally restrained. Tesla avoids layering features that require constant attention or configuration. Instead, systems are designed to fade into the background. This matters because cognitive load is a cost. Even if it's not on a balance sheet, a vehicle that constantly asks for input, adjustment, and management becomes tiring. The Model 2's philosophy is that a good car should require minimal thought to operate well, so you're paying for mental ease, not just mechanical function. Another overlooked area is thermal management. Battery longevity is heavily influenced by how well the system controls temperature. Extreme charging speeds and high-performance outputs generate heat, and managing that heat requires complex cooling hardware. The Model 2 is expected to operate within a more conservative thermal envelope that reduces the burden on cooling systems and slows long-term degradation. What you're paying for here is not maximum performance today, but stable performance over many years. And because the battery is not being pushed to its limits, charging behavior remains more predictable. Degradation curves are flatter, range loss is slower, usable capacity remains more consistent. That is a form of value that does not show up in a spec sheet, but it dominates ownership experience. The same principle applies to motor design. High-output motors are impressive, but they operate closer to material and thermal limits. A motor optimized for efficiency and moderate output experiences less stress and requires less aggressive cooling. That translates into longer service life and fewer performance changes over time. You're paying for margin, not peak. There is also a cost associated with noise, vibration, and harshness. Eliminating these issues often requires complex insulation strategies, layered materials, and tuned mass dampers. Tesla instead focuses on structural rigidity and simpler isolation solutions. The result is not absolute silence, but consistent acoustic behavior. There are fewer resonances, fewer buzzes, fewer intermittent noises that develop with age. What you're paying for is quiet that lasts, not just quiet when new. Software plays a similar role in ride and handling. By managing torque delivery, traction, and stability through centralized control, Tesla reduces the need for mechanical complexity. That means fewer mechanical interventions and smoother overall behavior. Again, this is not about maximum capability, but about consistent, predictable response. Even driver assistance features follow this logic. Rather than offering dozens of fragmented systems, Tesla integrates core safety functions into a unified stack. This reduces sensor duplication and processing overhead. You're paying for integrated safety, not feature count. From a financial perspective, the Model 2's greatest value may be in risk reduction. Unexpected repairs, rapid depreciation, and unpredictable maintenance costs are the primary sources of negative ownership experiences. By simplifying the vehicle and standardizing components, Tesla reduces variance. Costs become more forecastable. Reliability becomes more consistent across the fleet. That is what you are actually buying at this price point. Not luxury, not status, not maximum performance. You are buying stability. You are buying a car that is designed to behave the same way on year 8 as it did on year 1, within reasonable limits. You are buying a product that prioritizes total cost of ownership over initial impression. And this is why some features are intentionally absent. There may be no ventilated seats, because the added motors, ducts, and controls increase failure points and cost. There may be no panoramic glass roof, because it adds weight, thermal load, replacement expense. There may be no adaptive suspension, because its long-term reliability profile does not align with low-cost ownership. These omissions are not losses, they're real locations. The money is not being saved. It is being moved into structural durability, moved into electrical simplicity, moved into battery longevity, moved into software capability, moved into manufacturing consistency, all of which directly affect how the car ages, and aging is where true value is revealed. A car is not judged by how it feels in the first week. It is judged by how it feels in the 5th year, the 8th year, the 10th year. The Model 2 is being engineered for that timeline. So when someone asks, at this price, what am I really paying for? The deeper answer is this. You are paying for a vehicle that is optimized for the boring parts of ownership, the parts that are not exciting. Let's talk about the parts that don't sell brochures, the parts that determine whether a car becomes a burden or remains a tool. You are paying for predictability, durability, and efficiency, and you are no longer paying for complexity, excess, and fragility. That is the real trade-off, and that is why the Model 2 matters far beyond its sticker price.